Does anybody know what a trailing stop is? You all know what trailing stops are? Trailing stops look back in history, and let me get the GM example. All right. So here's GM goofing around. Here it goes flat, right in this period right there. So here, let's see. Here it goes flat right in this period right there. So there's the flat period. The stock goes up. And right here, we sell half of our calls. It's gone up so much, the calls have become so profitable that we're able to sell half of our calls. I then use support or resistance. In this particular instance, because it's the calls, I'm going to use support to get out of the rest. I then use a trailing stop. The stock pulls back and rallies, and I draw a line of support right there. You see how it pulled back? And there's a low. Goes up. And so what I say is, if GM shares close below, and this was about 61.50, if GM shares close below 61.50, get out of the rest of your calls. Stock pulls back, doesn't make it, rallies higher. And so in this instance, I'm looking for the lowest low, and there it is right there, and it just goes on and on. And then finally, you can see right there, here, we get out of the rest of our calls. Does everybody see how that works? I get out of the calls, and then I use support and resistance to get out of the rest. And here is the support, and GM can't make it through, can't make it any higher, and then bingo, it breaks through support, and we get out of the rest of the calls. Everybody follow that? I still have all my puts. And then I just wait. And you can see the thing's getting clobbered. Here, it actually breaks in 2 days. The thing gets back to our strike price. The puts have some pretty decent value. Not a lot, but some decent value. And then, boom, in late August, early September, the puts become actually quite valuable. And then September 11th happened, and there's a big gap down. And so right in here, I sold, actually I just sold half my puts. I didn't sell them all. Just one, you know, what if it keeps on going, right? And so we sold half of our puts, and then I used resistance to get out of the rest. So it goes down, it comes up, it makes a high right there, pulls back down, gets right back there, can't get through, pulls down, gets right back there, can't get through, and then bingo, it breaks through. And so what do? Sell the rest of my puts. And that's what this would be called this is a stop, a trailing stop. And that's what we're doing here. It's going down, and we're using a trailing stop. And it's now right here at about, what's that, about 43.50? And that's it.
Don, you sold half your calls, and then you waited, the stock turned back around, and you formed a line of resistance where it bounced right there. Okay? And you held on.
Okay. The line of resistance you were talking about is right here. Is that right?
No. I'm sorry. On your calls.
The line of support?
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. I'm sorry. On your support line there. Had that stock not bounced, okay, you sold the call, and then it drops back down, and it bounces off your support line. Had it not bounced there, you wouldn't have created that line of resistance there, obviously.
That is correct.
All right. And you'd still be holding that call. At that point, I mean, it has the potential to just keep dropping, and that call then is just going to be potentially worthless. I mean, what other indicators would you have used a signal to go ahead and get out of that last call?
I wouldn't have.
You wouldn't have. You'd have
No.
just held it.
I've had that happen before, where it goes up, you get out of half your calls, and instead of pulling back and going up, it just goes right back down. I've had that happen before.
Okay.
But just remember, you've got
You
all
got
your
your
puts.
puts, so.
You've got all your puts still. Now it could go up here, go right back to 55, and then just pancake right there. In which case, you've got a problem.
Right.
But that's the nature of the beast.
Okay.
Yeah, I noticed in the on the high profit report it changed on a daily basis as far as which stocks to look at, which ones were profitable. How many positions do you typically take and hold on to?
Yeah, and the question is, how many positions have we, could we end up like with 50 or 60 positions? And the answer is, at least this year, the most we've ever had at any one time is 16. Yeah, I mean, if you figure this, the question was, is that enough? Can one person handle 16, right? And the answer is probably. I can tell you this, if you don't have a lot of option trading experience, 16 might be a handful. 16 is not unmanageable. If you figure this, the average size is going to be about $600. So you take 600 times 16, and that's what, $9,600? So that you would have $9,600. So if you had a $20,000 portfolio, you'd still have more than half your money sitting on the sidelines. So that gives you an idea of, that's just buying one of each. Yeah.
You typically just buy one straddle at a time as opposed to two or three or multiples?
No, I don't buy one. I buy multiples. But I'm just saying, if you had a $20,000 account, you could buy just one and still have cash, more than half your cash, sitting idle. Now, you had a question.
It was similar to his. I was just wondering if things would move differently or quick money would start working. If the GM stock would move in a different
Okay.
direction.
All right.
I think mine's more a comment than a question. If you have a one lot and you hit your objective, can you sell it and buy it at one half the strike price?
Oh, see, that's a great, I'm glad you asked that because I forgot something. I forgot to mention something. So let me turn this mic off. That's a good question. If you buy a one lot and the rule is sell half your profitable position, how do you sell half of one? Remember, I told you there's something you're going to need to remember about delta, and it's what's the delta of an at-the-money option? What's the delta of it? About 50%. And as an option goes deeper in the money, what happens to the delta? It goes up. In fact, remember that another thing I said to remember is the time value. Remember we showed the graph of the profit loss of a call and the time value. The time value shrank as the option became more and more profitable. Remember that? Oh, good. You've got good memories. It seems like a year ago, doesn't it? It was just this morning. What that's showing is the stock, the option, is starting to behave more and more like a stock. And the delta is going, if the delta is the rate of change of an option, and the option is becoming more like the stock, the delta is getting close to 100% on the profitable call or the profitable put. So how do you get the delta to half of 100? Sell the call that you own that's at 100 delta and buy the option that has a delta of half of it. So if the option delta is 100, you want to get the delta to half, you want to buy the option whose delta is half of 100, which is 50. Which option is it? The at the money. So this is what's called, if it's a call, you roll up. It's called a roll up. You buy the 50 call, the stock goes up to, in that case on GM, it went up to 65. So then what would I do? I'd sell the 55 call that I owned, and I'd sell it and buy what? The 65. That's a roll-up. That's how you sell. You don't sell half, but it's the equivalent, the delta equivalent of selling half, and it's called a roll-up.